Why introduce a new flagship brand, Superb Realty?
It's both a pro and a con. A pro because
How do you feel about like saturation of your number of developments in whole of Eastern Suburbs?
this is one industry which will stay, right? I mean, you will never have enough of houses or enough of offices, and I think all of us agree that we are really far from any kind of permanent saturation.
I have one opinion. So why the name Superb?
Oh, just I mean, I noticed a smile when you said superb, and it is exactly that.
You're talking about expanding it to Pan Bombay. How do you plan to do that?
अगर नीयत अच्छी है तो आपको काम मिलेगा, आप अच्छा काम करोगे और काम से काम आप और कर पाओगे. And at the end of the day, see, ultimately what does a customer really want, right? And when I'm talking on any redevelopment project, एक तो आप मुझे वही कमिट करो जो आप डिलीवर कर सकते हो, और एक बार आपने जो कमिट किया है वो आप मुझे डिलीवर करो.
Let's talk about ongoing projects. Have heard a lot about Altura.
No developer has actually really thought about the air infrastructure of the building, right? I mean, and air infrastructure doesn't just mean HVAC systems, right? It just means about how are we able to bring a good AQI within the building.
So we'll move on to this last thing of rapid fire with you. One belief about real estate that most people get wrong.
That everybody is ethically wrong here.
If not real estate, which other business would it be?
So I think
Hello everyone. So welcome back to the podcast, and today with us we have Mr. Shilpin Tater, who is the managing director at Superb Realty and is having a great legacy in real estate. So welcome Shilpin Bhai, and thank you for this opportunity to have this conversation with you today, and looking forward to taking a lot of things back from this time.
thanks, Krish. Thanks for having me. I think you're doing a fantastic job at talking to people of the industry, and so I really enjoy the conversations that you have had with other developers, and I think you're doing a fantastic job. So thanks once again.
Thank you so much. You are very kind. Shilpin bhai, so you are working in a market where my awareness is very less in terms of knowledge of the market in itself. So we can just start in the areas that you are operating and how the market has been.
So predominantly, all a majority of our developments has been focused towards eastern suburbs. And when I say eastern suburb, it means from Dadar downwards, now all the way till Thane. So Ghatkopar has been our, the area of expertise. We've done many projects there. Then Vikhroli, Powai, Bando, Mulund, then on Andheri Kurla Road. So geographically, we've been more focused here since the last about 20 years. We've done innumerable projects in terms of real residential, commercial. So, yeah, and I think real estate is such a localized business that the area which you operate in, keep giving you more opportunities, and hence you naturally just kind of expand in that geography. So that's where our development has been majorly like. But now, of course, since the teams have grown, our bandwidth has grown in terms of the number of projects that we can execute. So now we are looking at Pan Bombay, on western and on southern side of Mumbai to expand our projects.
How do you feel about like saturation of your number of developments in whole of eastern suburbs?
So I think it's both a pro and a con. A pro because once you're set in a particular geography, you earn a lot of goodwill, you earn a lot of credibility, and hence it gives you a lot of repeat business. People are buying. The repeat rate is quite high, so it gives you a lot of satisfaction, and it gives you a little bit of ease to do more projects there. But naturally, as a brand and as a company, and you would want to kind of grow geographically. It'll also kind of de-risks you from a particular geography. So I think from a saturation point of view, I think we've done a lot projects in Ghatkopar, in Vikhroli, and we'll keep doing that. But the area of focus is to do more projects out of our comfort area, and now do marquee projects in other parts of Bombay.
So how many have you done a total completed projects in whole of eastern suburbs?
So I think we've completed about maybe 17 or 18 projects, about 50 lakh square feet approximately. And I'm not counting the projects that we are currently executing or still have in
What
pipeline.
about ongoing?
Yeah, so ongoing, there are about 5 projects ongoing. Two in Ghatkopar, one in Powai, one in Thane, one in Andheri East, on Andheri Kurla Road. So these are the 5 projects that we are currently, as we speak, and various stages of construction. But there are a few which are under approvals right now, and hence I'm not talking about them.
And what is the asset class like redevelopment, greenfields?
We've been actually quite lucky to find a lot of vacant land parcels which we have bought outright. And the moment we see an empty land parcel which is available for outright sale, we naturally kind of start putting more efforts towards that. I think though we do redevelopment also, but an open land actually gives you a lot many possibilities to kind of do the building, design a product of your own. Even though the initial deployment is quite large, but I think from a product perspective, it gives you a lot more bandwidth to plan the product the way you would want to. So naturally, we get more drawn towards an empty land parcel. But Bombay being Bombay, slowly and steadily, I think majority of our portfolio will be redev. But I think even currently, the projects that we are doing, majority of them are all outright purchase lands, and then we really like that asset class.
So we are also coming across like
Yeah.
a vacant land project where we have got a huge amount of freedom to work on that product. मतलब when there is a small size, मतलब अगर 500 मीटर का vacant land है तो फिर आप ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं
नहीं
कर
कर
सकते
पाओगे
हो.
आप, बराबर
So
है।
what is the area that you enjoy, or maybe not talking about the area also, but in
Yeah.
general, the benefits of doing a greenfield over a redevelopment?
So I think it's greenfield redevelopment, like you said, development. It's always very you are in a very comfortable zone because you can really plan the product the way you want to. A lot of times you are constrained because if there are existing rehab members, then you can only plan a certain way. Then your structural issues, and also if you design too luxury a project, whereas the other members, the rehab members, are not kind of used to living in that kind of an environment, then your usual maintenance charges, overall maintenance of the building. I think there are a lot of questions that even the new purchasers would have in the mind. Whereas in a greenfield development, I mean, you can actually think, beyond what you've been doing. See, the creative streak in every developer is what new can I do in the new project, right? I mean, that's the kick, which you keep getting from project to project. And in an open project, open land kind of gives you that freedom. But again, it's not very often that you come across vacant land parcels and also manage to bag it, right? Because nowadays one open land parcel has the eyes of entire Bombay, kind of vying for that. So feasibility betna chahiye, consumption. There's so many factors. But once you have it, I think that's the best that a developer can have from a project execution, from a project planning perspective.
So we'll go a little back into the past. So why did you enter real estate industry?
So we were actually, I'm a second gen entrepreneur, so to speak. So dad had already been, my family had already been doing real estate for not very long, but about 10 years at least. So this was a natural kind of an accession for me to kind of join real estate. But as a family, we also still have other businesses as well, like jewelry and other businesses as well. So dad had always given me an option that you can actually do whatever you want because we've been educated as an engineer, and after doing your masters, you have all kind of ideas in terms of certain new things that you want to do. So as a family, we've already always been given that freedom to do whatever you want. But then actually liked real estate as a sector more than my other businesses in our group as well. And then I voluntarily chose real estate, that this is where at least I would want to spend time in, and let's see, if I like it, I would want to do that for a long time. But then, as they say, once you've tasted blood, then you would just want to kind of,
No, but you are having other businesses. Why real estate above those other businesses?
even in those businesses, my dad was involved more in real estate, and like and we come from a traditional Marwari family, and all our table conversations and everything was revolving so much around real estate that even before entering the business, I somewhere in your mind you have already made up that this is the kind of business that you want to do. And also, I think even then I kind of realized one thing is that I never liked the monotonicity in whatever I wanted to do. So all our other businesses were sort of, kind of very, very monotonous as a business, right? Whereas real estate, I used to see that, I mean, there were challenges every day, every day was very different from the last one. So I just thought that probably this is something where at least I would want to kind of try my hands on. I mean, those were the initial thoughts.
So I have one opinion. So real estate is so dynamic that you are not doing the same thing again is very difficult because every project is different. Every negotiation, every acquisition, every approval, everything is very subjective to the factors and conditions. So it's a stress for life.
Yes, absolutely.
While the monotonous business is where things can be automated so quickly to a level, and if you are growing and if you have grown,
Yeah.
at the end, what a person wants is to have a good,
Good peace
peaceful
of
life.
mind. And that's what your family also wants,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So that is what we want.
Yeah.
Then how does that feel right now?
No, so what I told you was my thoughts 20 years back because but I still feel the same, I mean, given an option, of course, now, because we also run a family office and, we also get exposed to so many other sectors and, we invest in so many other companies. But at the end of the day, you do have moments where you think that, let's even try our hand at that business, but I think, after a couple of days, you think that, kind of real estate, the kick that this business gives, एक लैंड का अगर आपको प्रपोजल आ जाए, योर माइंड गेट्स काइंड ऑफ continuously around it, you have already kind of imagined what kind of product will you make 2 years hence, so I think it's a continuous source of adrenaline that this business gives you. Of course, like you said, it's a stress for life, I mean, and I think more than us, our team and our families know more about it than us. But I think I enjoy it. I mean, that's the whole thing. And I've come to enjoy it even more after so many years. Of course, initially everybody has challenges, because it's not an easy business. And after you've kind of done your education, this is the least that, you can kind of correlate with whatever you've kind of studied or imagine. So this is complete 360-degree turn.
So, what do you look forward to 20 years down the line as you, what kind of work would you want to do?
I kind of think about that as well a lot of
So,
times
this
is that.
question is on a personal level.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think each age bracket kind of will put you into certain mindset, right? I mean, right now when I'm just entering my 40s, probably there's a different mindset which I had when I was in my early 30s. Early 30s में तो you used to take your decision first and then think कि भाई ये कैसे भी करके कर लेंगे. Now you're taking slightly more calculated decisions. So I think the risk profile, your approach towards business kind of changes with time. But what I think is that, the way unstructured the business was maybe a couple of decades back, I think now the businesses are very structured. People are, and like with the next generation coming in, with yourself, myself, we are used to kind of thinking in a certain way. So I think uh, whatever happens is for good. I think the industry will mature, the work will mature. Of course, it's very cyclical, and hence you will have your moment of really loving this sector to kind of really hating as to where you are, in moments of bad times. But I think this is one industry which will stay, right? I mean, you will never have enough of houses or enough of offices. And I think if you look at any kind of demographics, in China or elsewhere, I think all of us agree that we are really far from any kind of permanent saturation, So I think there'll be enough work for me and maybe now for my son as well. So let's see. But I definitely would want to see this business being done in a very, very structured way, very professional way, where even my next generation would want to come and kind of enter into this business.
So, Shilpin, like, you will be doing the business that point of time also. So, on that, what I would want to know is that, let's say, years back when you first time entered the business, you would be doing some kind of set of operational activity at that point of time. Today, 15 years later, you would be doing a different kind of thing, managing or whatever sense, whatever your day to day activities, routines is different. So we can first talk about that, then I'll come to the later part of it.
So my story actually is slightly different. I was kind I wouldn't say pushed into, but immediately after my education, there was an incident in the family, and I had to kind of get full, on an operational level, get involved and drive the business on my own. Because there was a death in the family, and I had to kind of take the mantle of the business, all existing projects, everything is what I had to kind of run it very operationally. So I really didn't have any time to kind of plan a career path in terms of this is what I would want to do first, and gradually get onto the other aspects of business. So it practically became like from day one I was kind of looking at finance, looking at approvals, looking at construction, and of course I was learning the same time and also kind of performing at the same time. So it was a very mixed kind of a career path and a journey with what you would have kind of thought when you were doing your education. But nothing to complain. I mean, I think I was very lucky to kind of face those things very early on into my, when I was practically 21 is when I joined business full time. So I've had a very interesting, very different kind of a career path than what anybody else would have. But nothing to complain. I think I am what I am today because of those times. And, I think it's very important to go through that struggle initially. And so I have a very different answer to your question is that probably I was involved into everything then. Now because of your management style kind of evolves, you learn from the market, you learn from your own mistakes, and then gradually you kind of have your own way of doing things. So now I'm operationally giving it lots to my team. I kind of get involved in very few things, so I don't want to become a bottleneck for my own company, and hence now operationally I'm involved in only
What
very
kind of
critical.
changes have been those where
So I think what I've realized is that alignment in the team is very important. Apart from only getting the right people on the team, the alignment of the team and your goal setting in the team is very very important. So what we've done over a period of time now is that it's not only me who has every kind of my milestone or targets in my mind, but right from the lowest employee that we would have in our organization to all our the CXOs, everybody, all of us are aligned to the way I am thinking, or the goals have been set. So everybody knows as to where do we want to be year 1, year 2, year 3, and hence I think my job now is more to just keep everybody aligned, keep everybody focused towards that goal. And I think now the team has matured. I've got, and I think the leader is only as good as his team. So I think the team is performing really well now, and I think they are taking more and more responsibilities. And as a hands-on entrepreneur, the most difficult thing to do is actually to let go of your operational involvement, right? And I think gradually over time, I'm getting more and more comfortable. It's a very give and take. I give a task to my team, they perform well, or they come back with kind of very reassuring results, and I think that gives me more confidence to kind of let go of more of my responsibilities to them. So I think I'm entering into that happy space as a leader of the organization to kind of give more and more operational responsibilities. So I think as I think in our business there are so many moving parts that your attention on a particular day could be towards many many things, right? I mean, we are always firefighting, but I think now as leader, even if I were to firefight, I have very few tasks a day that I would want to really spend my time on, and that gives me good enough bandwidth to kind of get the maximum out of that problem, or really solve that problem for my team. So yeah, I think that's where I am as in that journey right now.
I think so very beautiful and thing that has to be there for growth. Still, if you are not planning to get away from operational
Yeah,
day-to-day activities, you'll never get time to strategize, think for actual business development of the company, not for the projects only.
and that's always it's going to be an evolving journey, right? I'm not there yet, and I don't know whether I'll be there even in 5 years. I think it's always going to be work in progress. But I think even we are learning over this, the teams are also learning, so I think it's a happy space to be in right now.
So, putting in more operational responsibilities at the team level, and that will subsequently lead to your less bandwidth getting involved into the company. So, how would you utilize that bandwidth?
So I think our bandwidth is very important, that we have a very uncluttered bandwidth right now, right? I mean, if you are looking at growth, I think the only person in the company who's responsible for growth is you, and you cannot delegate that. So I think what I have taken on myself is that if I can have a good bandwidth and an empty space to think about growth, I think that's my job. And after that, once I have decided how to grow the company, and then the team can kind of take it forward from there, because if my vision is not clear, then team is just going to be equally clueless, right? So I think if I want to really plan my growth for the next 5 years, I think I need an empty kind of a bandwidth from an operational perspective. But at the same time, I think that'll give me more time to meet a lot of new people, explore a lot of opportunities, spend more time thinking about how I really would want to kind of And what I think is also important is it'll give you time to zoom out, right? Because when you're so hands on to your business, you are always looking at the next problem that's coming onto your table, and you never really get time to kind of zoom out and look at your own business from a, kind of from a bird's eye view. So I think uh, the moment you kind of keep delegating these kind of responsibilities, it'll give you a lot of bandwidth to look at your own business from a very, very different perspective. And I think that is where growth comes from. And that's going to be my target, at least for the next couple of years, to kind of look at that kind of
So
model.
I had asked you about 20 years down the line, how do you see? But moving on to little bit less
Yeah.
future short term goals, maybe in 2 years, 3 years. So what is your goal regarding your whole growth for the next 2 to 5 years
Yeah. So,
timeline?
like I was talking to you, we've just recently launched Superb Realty as our flagship brand, which has just happened about 7 months back. I think as Superb, our goals are set uh, in terms of what we want to do with this brand. So I've been in business now for about 18 years, and what this time period has given me a bandwidth is to know what the customers would want from a product perspective, from a brand perspective, from a customer experience perspective. And I what I endeavor to do is to bring all of those learning under Super BLT now, and see how we are able to do uh, very, very path-breaking work for the next 5 years. And I think that is what is my brief to my team and also to myself, is that look at all our mistakes that we've done in the last 18 years and see how we can redefine each and every procedure, each and every process, how we can redefine our customer experience, because we all know that now we are talking to a very evolved and a matured audience, and even from 5 years from now, people like you and me would be the ones who are buying properties, right? So I think when you want to talk to a very evolved audience, your brand needs to be designed in such a way you would want such kind of projects, such kind of project planning. The design brief needs to be such. So I think our task is very set for the next 5 years, is to grow Superb Realty into one of the most admired brands, of Bombay. And here, when I say admired brand, and that's really going to be our target, right? I mean, we would necessarily not want to compete with anybody on volume, right? And competition is a very wrong word to use, anyways, right? Bombay is such a huge market, and if I think through our projects, through our buildings, if we get the admiration and the love that as a brand we want, and if we have been able to achieve that in the next 5 years, I think we would be considering ourselves as successful in terms of the goals that we've set.
Skyline Group has been there for 25 years, and there is a goodwill that gets attached to a particular name, and it would be attached to Skyline Group, right? Then why introduce a new flagship brand, Superb Realty?
So I think Skyline's still continues, and there's enough projects under Skyline brand as well, which I'll take another 8 to 10 years to kind of execute all of them. So what I actually noticed was there was a gap in the kind of work that we were doing, and also what the customers were demanding for, right? And when I say that gap is like what I was just discussing, is that the audience has evolved, it has matured, it's very well traveled. They know the kind of products that they're looking for. When we say world class, they really know what world class actually means, right? And what I thought was that by having a completely different team, completely different brand with a completely different ethos, whereas our values stay the same, but with a renewed energy, if we are kind of looking at it freshly from grounds up, I think we'll be in a much better position to kind of deliver what we have set it out in our mind in terms of what exactly needs to be kind of delivered to the people. So I think what Superb is really standing for is a renewed version or renewed vision of what we think that real estate uh, should be, what we should be doing as a real estate developer. And Superb really just brings that into the forefront.
We can say that how Lodha has Lodha Luxury. It's
Yeah,
similar to
yeah.
that, to differentiate completely two different kind of projects and different scale of work.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think you've set out a very good example. And if you look at Lodha's journey, also what they were doing prior to when Abhishek came in, I mean, even then it was a good brand, but with a renewed vision, the kind of scale and the kind of product quality that he's come up with, I think uh, all of us know what needs to be done, but there just needs to be a mindset shift. I think with Super, we brought in that kind of a mindset shift within ourselves, within the team. And now we are hoping that people are also able to appreciate and admire the kind of mindset shift that we are bringing as a real estate developer.
Interesting. Why the name Superb?
Oh, just I mean, I noticed a smile when you said superb, and it is exactly that, right? I mean, superb is such a positive emotion, right? Uh, that no two people can have different connotation around what superb would mean, right? And I think I could have easily attached my family name to it, right? But what I thought was that the name superb is both an opportunity as well as a huge responsibility, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if my product doesn't come out superb, and when Krish, you come to one of our properties and you don't say that it's been truly superb, I think we wouldn't have done our job really well. So I think it puts a huge onus on us as a team, that if we were to make a super project, I think a super project in your mind and my mind would always be something which is above the market, or the best in class. And I think by that name, and when I was talking to you about alignment, I think this name brings great alignment within the team, within our extended consultants, our channel partners, that everybody just wants to do superb work. And our brief also to our team is always going to be just that. And then if we go to an architect and say that, kya project chahiye, kaisa product chahiye, and our just is that we just want super planning, and a super project. So I think this name itself evokes so much of positive emotions, and I played $0 to get this name, because this name stayed with me for a lot of time. And I just told my creative agencies that don't suggest names around it, just give me a good brand identity, and I would just want this name. So
No, very interesting perspective. And the best part is that you need pressure to perform.
absolutely,
And that pressure is
they
subconsciously
always
always
there.
there, always there.
And whomever I've met, and I've just told them, in 10 seconds about why superb, and they always come back saying that, it's a huge task in front of you. And I think that's the challenge that one needs as a team and one needs as a developer. It's not about how many buildings that you've done, but even if one really superb building that you've done in that micro market will always give you that kind of goodwill that, even 10 projects in that area
A
wouldn't. So
superb building.
a superb building. So so I think that's the task that we've set it out, and I think uh, that's where superb comes from.
So, Shilpin bhai, you have a lot of history, goodwill in the eastern suburbs. Now, you're talking about expanding it to Pan Bombay primarily for the next good few years. How do you plan to do that?
When we debated about that exact question within our team, right, as to when we are bidding for a project, maybe in South Bombay or maybe in Western Suburb, why us, right? I mean, and that is the question that any redev project would ask, or any landlord on that perspective would ask. I think that brings us back slightly into, and when we deep dive to get right answers for that, I think it brought us back to our own values and our own set of ideas on which the businesses was started day one, right? I mean, when I say that, we've been in business for 20 years, we've had, excellent partnerships, and we've managed to maintain that goodwill. I think those set of values, Krish, still stand so relevant today, right? I mean, you could be building the best of the buildings, but if the reputation is not as good as what you would have desired, I mean, customers see through it, right? They see through your integrity, they'll see through your and these all things don't come under RERA or any of your brochures, right? I mean, this is what through word of mouth, through when a customer kind of inquires about you. I mean, and the first thing is that nahi yaar, is builder ke paas se to aap flat mat lo. So that one statement actually kind of just spoils your reputation or your goodwill that you think that you've built over so many years, right? So I think what we have done and what will be our bedrock for all further development is that how can we take this goodwill and this integrity of ours to the next level? How can we further improve upon it? How can we transparently communicate to our customers about it? And I think apart from all the other things that a typical developer would do in terms of the project, in terms of the execution, I mean, all those things are very important. But I think at the core of it, if your value system and like they say ना, नियत, अगर नियत अच्छी है तो आपको काम मिलेगा, आप अच्छा काम करोगे और काम से काम आप और कर पाओगे। बट इफ आपकी नियत ही अच्छी नहीं है, तो मैं आपसे 1 बार झूठ बोल लूँगा, 2 बार झूठ बोल लूँगा, बट our business is long gestation period, right? It's not just a sale which I made to you over the counter and you and me never meet again, right? Even after selling a flat, you are with me for 3 years, and that I'm not even counting a repeat purchase. So real estate is such a long gestation period that अगर मेरी नीयत अच्छी नहीं है तो वो दिक्कत आएगी. And today, I mean, our industry is so wide. You will have all kind of people in that, and you and me know of so many examples where the niyat has not been good, right? And they are nowhere in the market today. So I think if we just keep our core set of ideals and beliefs, like which probably our dads or even their dads has kind of they've really built, right from, I think that is that'll keep us guarded for any sort of expansion plans, right? And of course, when you're expanding into other geographies, you'll need all the other kind of standard set of requirements. But I think at the core of it, I think this is what we would want to showcase to other markets when we get there.
I think so. You very well rightly said, like at the core of any business, any industry, anything you do in life comes down to ethics being the
Yeah, yeah.
primary principle in your
Primary
life,
principle, yeah.
like for anything you do in your life. So definitely that part is there, and that will not lead to any kind of negative work in your expansion, where that is a very set thing, which is a very big pro, where people who have not been able to live up to that code of conduct have been outwashed by the industry
Completely.
or by the community, by the world. So,
Absolutely.
but still, having this in place, but expanding into a new market will always have its new challenge. आप ईस्टर्न मार्केट में आपकी बिल्डिंग बनाई हुई है, बाजू वाली बिल्डिंग को आपको बोलना ही नहीं पड़ेगा कि मैंने क्या काम किया हुआ है. सो दैट अगेन हैज़ अ प्रो, एंड टुडे इट्स इन होल ऑफ इंडिया इज ग्रोइंग. So good amount of opportunity, good amount of great work still will be coming into just eastern suburbs for even doing much more larger amount
Absolute.
of work in that area.
Absolutely.
I'm saying out of this just
Yeah,
out
yeah.
of our little bit of
So,
experience.
so I think, Krish, I think what you're asking is apart from this, what else will get you to kind of achieve that expansion goals? I think
Today, if we do work in western suburbs without putting in much efforts for telling who Rishabh Raj is, or
absolutely
without even telling
your
how.
work will keeps getting you more
हाँ,
work.
मतलब मार्केटिंग में खर्चा नहीं करना पड़ता
बिल्कुल.
है, सेल वाले के लिए ब्रोकर के साथ इतना खर्चा अपन को नहीं करना पड़ता है, एक्विजिशन में इतना मेहनत नहीं करना पड़ता है। वही चीज़ हम अगर थाने में आएँगे और बोलेंगे कि नहीं हमको बिल्डिंग रीडेवलप करना है, तो 10 गुना ज़्यादा मुश्किल होएगा।
So मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि ऐसी it's not going to be a cakewalk, right? Because of course every market is so saturated in terms of the number of developers that it has. But I still think that it will be a lot of effort from our side, from our BD team side, from our designers, from everybody, right? It will be a huge team effort to kind of set a foothold in any new market. But I think over a period of time, I mean, now we've been in the business since 20 years, and we know, in terms of what is it that the customer is looking for, and what is it that we can deliver in that market. So I think and at the end of the day, see, ultimately what does a customer really want, right? And when I'm talking on any redevelopment project, एक तो आप मुझे वही कमिट करो जो आप डिलीवर कर सकते हो, और एक बार आपने जो कमिट किया है वो आप मुझे डिलीवर कर दो. दे आर द टू बेसिक रिक्वायरमेंट्स, एंड दैट इज व्हाट आई टेल टू माय टीम आल्सो, इज दैट ओनली कमिट व्हाट यू कैन डिलीवर. You what you can give over and above that, everybody will be happy, but don't compromise on that. And once you've committed, then make sure that you're delivering it even at the cost of your own money, or P&L, right? So I think it will be a lot of effort, but I think we've got enough bandwidth now as a team, and a lot of good institutions supporting us, a lot of channel partners whom we've dealt with over a period of time. So I don't think it will be that tough a challenge. It is, I think the question always was about our management bandwidth in terms of how many projects that we can kind of handle. When do we think that we are ready for a growth? And then it brings back to what we were discussing from a management perspective. I think now the team is more mature, that we'll kind of we can kind of push more and more work towards them, and that's where my bandwidth is free right now in terms of to look at BD aggressively. So it'll be tough, but I don't think it's something which, you have so many people who are working from western suburbs now into eastern. Now Bombay is not that compartmentalized, so you have so many developers working across. So I think it'll be a lot of effort, but I don't think it'll be something which is really difficult.
People have been building buildings where they have done building in Bangalore and now coming to Bombay. So it won't be a challenge.
a lot of time the challenge is about visibility, and now, you know, teams are so, you will have to kind of present yourself in the way people understand. So I think all those, we'll have to execute in such a way that, we are able to kind of expand geographically now.
So let's talk about ongoing projects. So have heard a lot about Altura.
Yeah.
So can you give a first brief about what the project is?
So this is, so I'll just tell you geographically, this is in at the crossroads of Chembur and Ghatkopar. It's a very, a very, very vibrant area. It's always been a backyard, but even from a geographical perspective, it's a very vibrant area. It's bang near Eastern Highway. You are on SCLR in 2 minutes. You can take the freeway within 5 minutes. I think location wise, it was a perfect location. And with any, like I said, it was an empty land parcel. Our eyes were always on it, and with any acquisition, it takes time. There were multiple landowners. We had to kind of get around them. But once we got hold of that, the only brief, like I told you, was that, because this is the flagship project under which Superb kind of gets launched, and under the identity, this is the first project. So we really wanted to do a super project around it. So we are doing best in the class commercial building there. Uh, and the social fabric of Ghatkopar and Chembur is such that there are a lot of SMEs, there are a lot of business owners. So we really wanted to give them a place where they really feel the pride of working in. And we thought that, my brief to the team even then was that, BKC has all the glitzy buildings. They have such well performing buildings. Why don't we make a building of that standard in our area, right? And that is the brief even till today to our execution team, is that don't compromise on anything in this building. We really want to do a grade A building here. So the feel that you get when you walk into the best of the buildings in BKC is what we want to bring to this area, and hence it's a very prestigious project for us. And also because it's the first project under Super, we really want to leave no stone unturned in the way we kind of build this project.
Also, if you want to talk about like few great things that you have implemented in terms of IoT systems, BIM modeling.
So I think, as Superb, the four things that we have set out as our pillars is design, sustainability, wellness, and technology, right? And these four things are so ingrained in the way we have kind of built this company now, is that they're not there just lying in the brochure, but really out there in terms of where we have set implementation targets on each of these pillars in terms of what do we do. So there are a lot of interesting things that as a real estate developer you always thought was a problem, but we never got a chance to kind of implement or really get around solutions for this, right? So you'll hear of a very interesting type that we'll be doing. So there's very little that as developers we can do around the air quality of one particular area, right? Because as real estate developers, you just have control over your own site, right? But what we thought that, the people who are working or staying within your buildings, right? Why can't they have the best kind of air quality or the best air infrastructure? So no developer has actually really thought about the air infrastructure of the building, right? I mean, and air infrastructure doesn't just mean HVAC systems, right? It just means about how are we able to bring a very so-called a good AQI within the building. So we've done a very interesting tech tie-up around that. A very interesting company who just thinks about air infrastructure as their core business. And as real estate developers, we've partnered with them. We want to understand around how air moves, how we are able to kind of get fresh air so that people can work better, their cognitive abilities improve. So when we talk about wellness, these are the kind of things that we really are getting into, right? And they are not just gimmicky things around. When I say technology, you just don't want to put flashy or like I said, gimmicky objects, but really how can technology, so to speak, be not on your face of it, but still aid your working in that building. So we are doing very interesting, work around intelligent building management system, where a building has always been considered as a built asset, as a kind of asset which doesn't really speak to you. So can your building speak to you? And no matter what does it take for that building to speak to you? So we are doing a digital backbone of each and every building that we have kind of tied up with a tech provider, and now we are continuously engaging with it. So like, a human being has a spine. Why can't a building have a digital spine of its own that continuously reads and looks at various data points, kind of gives you its own analysis? So by those things, what I think is that, see, any building that we make, Krish, is there for the next 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, right? And over a period of time, it kind of becomes so irrelevant because your building actually stops performing, right? Your energy usage goes really high. Your water systems kind of don't really function well. Your fire systems are kind of, half the buildings don't even, beyond when the developer hands over, they don't do that. So I think by doing good integrated tech within the building, I think, can we look at buildings which are performing well for the next 30 years, 50 years? I mean, those are the kind of transformative tech and systems that we are looking at as a company. And this building will at least have few of them, because I think all of these are only work in progress. And which each building we will have our own learnings and kind of keep implementing new solutions. But with this building, we are doing something really interesting around air. And like I told you, this building will have a digital spine of its own, which will be absolutely bringing this building to life. So we've kind of internally coined a term of around architectural intelligence, right? And it brings the best of architecture and the best of intelligence merged into at a product level, right? So my design, my wellness, my sustainability is all somewhere related to architecture and design, and that is where we are giving so much of importance. And I think tech adds as such a beautiful layer on top of all your physical infrastructure. So what we've set out to call it internally is architectural intelligence, and we want all our projects that we do to be sort of intelligent products that way. So those are just because you took out the points of tech. And apart from that, I mean, of course, our building is, we didn't have any requirement for this building to be it is not under the environmental this thing, but still our building is green. As Superb, we have decided that all our buildings will naturally be with green certified. It could be LEED, it could be GREA, it could be EDGE, any of these certifications. But whether we require it or not, we will definitely mandatorily go for a green certification. So I think those are the kind of standards with which Altura is the first product with which we'll showcase it, and it will have all best in class.
I think so. Very beautiful. And that is a clear differentiator where just a normal building made versus a building which is having oxygen to breathe.
Breathe,
Like,
absolutely.
like it
And
will make the building live much more longer.
live, at least the people working in that live much more longer,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Because
100%.
you are in your home only for 8 hours, 9 hours a day, right? I mean, considering that if you have a busy schedule, but you're in office, you're 12 hours a day, or at least 8 to 10 hours a day, right? And you're breathing, you're living there. So actually, the importance that one gives to his home, an equal or probably more importance should be given to where he is working in, right? So I think we just kind of bringing very human solutions to these kind of problems.
No, I feel the perfect way of thinking and thought process that needs to be there today to perform.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, Shilpin bhai, how do you manage your week? How does it look like running a company, having multiple ongoing projects? Sometimes some things come up in
Yeah, right.
between your any meeting, any firefighting situation, but at the core of it, how does your week look like? How have you structured it?
So, Krish, one very important thing which I've been kind of practicing myself is how do I set my calendar for that particular week, right? At least because so much of firefighting just comes that your days actually goes for a toss, right? In terms of what you've set out. But what I've done is that at least if I can have 2 or 3 days, where I can actually kind of focus on particularly just growth, right? Apart from my operational uh, responsibilities in terms of the ongoing projects, and I'm trying to compartmentalize my time. And of course, because in real estate, you will have your disturbances and your urgencies and firefighting, but consciously, if you have kind of decided where you want to spend time on, I think it starts from there, because we just, Krish, I think time is such a commodity which we've never really valued, right? And we think that whatever is on our table is also important, it is also urgent. So I think what not necessarily what is urgent is always very important, right? And we always don't kind of prioritize in terms of what and where we want to pay our own attention to, right? And as a leader of the company, if you see your money value of time, if you don't recognize that very consciously, right? I mean, you will be doing the work of what probably a sales manager would be doing, or what a site engineer would be doing. And I think that you need to give that much of credit to yourself in terms of that as the leader of the company. If you're not doing high value stuff or high growth stuff, I think the company will just not grow. So what I'm consciously doing, or at least I'm as a calendar setting goal for the week, I'm wanting to dedicate more time towards high productive goal setting works, and activities where I think my company will benefit more, and just consciously get out of operational activities, right? And I think and I have a very interesting observation on this, right? And for that, actually, our office is not the really the right place, right? Because the moment you're in office, then the culture is such that anybody will kind of come up with their problems, right? And more often than not, when one doesn't want to find a solution, they will come and kind of put it on your table and say that, as a leader of the organization, you find a solution. But when you're consciously not there in the office, I think team will also learn to kind of find solutions on their own. So I, by bits and pieces, I am also kind of consciously telling them that I'm not going to be 24/7 available just for, your problem solving. If there's a major problem, in the middle of the night, is always available. But for the team to take more responsibilities, like I said, we need to kind of consciously get away from it and focus more on growth related work. And that's how I've been kind of now wanting to do.
I think so perfectly explained how so many things keep on happening on every week that you need to re-strategize every single.
Also, I think a lot of times we think that we are the best decision makers, right? And anything that comes on your table, you would want to kind of give your decision on it, right? But even if I were to look at my last 20-year journey, or maybe, even if you were to look at your this thing, we as leaders also make equally the same number of mistakes that our team does, right? It's just that nobody can tell us, right? Because you are the head of the organization and nobody can tell you that you've made a mistake. But uh, just because you are going to take that decision doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to be right, right? So I mean, the more decision making that you delegated to your team, I think that is where they will kind of become mature. You will kind of, and I also have a thing, right, that because your bandwidth is so full of always firefighting, कोई भी टीम मेंबर अपने पास आएगा तो हम बोले ठीक है मैं सोच के बताता हूँ, ठीक है? और आप कभी सोचोगे भी नहीं, जस्ट काइंड ऑफ come to think about it, because you're just moving and jumping from one problem to another. So you consciously never actually think even about that problem, but you just keep procrastinating it, right? फिर जब वो डिसीजन एकदम एंड पे आ जाएगा कि नाउ सर यू विल हैव टू टेक इट, दैट्स व्हेन यू थिंक दैट अच्छा तुझे क्या लगता है ये ठीक है ना, ठीक है कर ले. सो so, but if you actually think about it, what have you done? You've just kind of procrastinated. You have never really kind of put your mind and brain around it, because what your decision was day one in that split second, like when they say about gut, right? And what decision you would have taken then, you still have taken only that decision at the end of it, right? But just because that problem was delegated to you and you delegated it to yourself, you just procrastinated the entire work of the team for so long. So I think that, you know, the more you kind of delegate it to the team, I think the better it is, right? Of course, they'll make mistakes and they'll learn out of it. That's how the team will grow. Yeah.
100%, I think so. Very good maturity attained in that area in your organization. So, since we were talking about various organizations like non-profit, GTO, various real estate associations, so wanting to know your opinion about how should a person decide how much he or she should be involved in things outside their business, which are somehow related indirectly to the business.
So I think it's very important, right, Krish? As again, as the leaders of our organizations, it's very important to have different perspectives, right? Because we are so used to just talking about our projects, our balance sheets, and our problems. We never really get a different perspective. It could be from your own business kind of sector, or it could be from other sectors as well, right? So I think what getting involved in certain other kind of maybe organizations or associations, I think it just gives a lot of different perspective, maybe a lot of times clarity, maybe best practices. And I think as leaders, I think that is what's more important, right? How can we get the best practices, the best way the other leaders would think, and I think even minutest of things, right, could do a world lot of difference to your organization. So I think all of these things are definitely, apart from improving your network and kind of meeting people, I think it just helps you in profession as well. And what seen is that all, like when we were talking about expansion, right, I think business is done over relations. And most of the businesses, and necessarily not all, but most of the businesses are done over relations. And these are the places where you actually make good relations, right? And so I think for business, apart from just doing business, I think these things are supremely important now.
Any experience in that area?
So I think, like just going little back, right? I think uh, we all come from a traditional Marwadi family, right? And like our fathers just came from their villages and set businesses there. I think the entire growth, even in that generation, and even now when I see, right, it's completely relationship driven, right? And then it also brings back to the values that we spoke about, ethics, and I mean, once you are known as a person who is a very ethical kind of a businessman in your area, I think opportunities will come to you. Yeah, because every like-minded man would want to kind of work with another like-minded person, right? So I think this is how business opportunities come along. And business opportunities are not what you will kind of come across as a something that just lands onto your email, or some proposal that comes onto your table through somebody else. And a lot of times it's just over conversations that one kind of grows their business, and those conversations happen only and then I have seen that firsthand. A lot of the projects that we do actually kind of just comes across, or somebody just casually says that this is what I have, why don't you do it, right? And I think you cannot never quantify it, but in the hindsight, when you look at in terms of how have you progressed in life, and who has been very instrumental, I think more often than not such kind of relationships always propel you higher into your professional
So I
success.
think so good amount of time to be dedicated to various associations for getting that extra mileage for doing greater things.
It could be whatever you like, right? I mean, Krisha, it could be based on your interests and your passions. But I just think that moving away from your business and spending little time into a few of these things will kind of do world of good.
100% agreed with you. So you have been working very closely with your father. So how do you manage that dynamic role between the both of you? How do you make decisions together? How has your experience been in that area?
I always get delighted when somebody asks me that question, because they would want to hear very, I mean, typical stories are something which has a lot of friction, or maybe a lot of, but here in my case, I think uh, dad has been, he's more sort of youthful than I am in terms of how he wants to, kind of expand the business, seize the business. And since we have multiple businesses, and he's also very socially involved, his 1 hour of bandwidth on the business is enough to kind of drive us, for lot many days. So he's very aggressive in terms of the way he looks at business, the way he wants to see our business, and there's a complete free hand in terms of the way that I want to kind of take the business forward, and the kind of work that I want to do, the kind of geographies that I want to do. And like I was telling but the North Star that is set for the business and as a group as a whole is so clear in terms of the value systems that, kind of he said and he always says, right? And there is one line of his which I think is is so true for a real estate, right? इज़ है कि किसी के भी साथ काम करो तो लैंड के टाइटल के पहले ना आदमी का टाइटल देख लो, बराबर है? क्योंकि आप कितना भी अच्छा डॉक्यूमेंट बना लोगे लैंड के लिए, राइट? अगर वो आदमी अगर अच्छा नहीं है, तो मोर ऑफ़न देन नॉट, यू विल लैंड अप इन अ प्रॉब्लम, एंड वन्स इन योर प्रॉब्लम अराइजेज़, then to resolve that also is going to be extremely difficult, right? Because the person is unreasonable. बट अगर वो आदमी का टाइटल अच्छा है, एंड व्हेन दे से दैट आदमी का टाइटल अच्छा है, मतलब he understands what business is, he understands the relationships, and he would want to solve the problem over the table, right? And that's where, and you have me have seen so many problems because our industry is such that आप सब चीज़ पेपर पे वैसे भी नहीं लिख पाओगे, अभी FSI consumption, delays, so many things. It's such a complex, but those are the kind of learnings, right? That stays with you, and that always says that, when you're evaluating anybody, कि यार ये आदमी अच्छा नहीं है, business कितना भी profitable हो, let's not get into this. Maybe not today, but 1 year down the line, you might just kind of run into some problem. So I think there's so much of freedom, but at the same time, there's so much of guidance around how I should look at the business, how we should grow. And the day that he will kind of see something really nice of some other project, he'll like, तुम लोग क्या काम कर रहे हो? Why don't you kind of do such projects? Why are you not looking at that kind of a geography? So I think what we take out of that is very, those statements look very singular by itself, but when you kind of actually go deep into it, that's where you get the motivation to do what's next in your business, right? So I think it's a fantastic kind of a combination where his experience and his guidance and our execution versus our growth targets. So
I think so. Very beautiful relationship, and will wish the same for every person in this whole world. Like,
I think even you are working with your
yeah,
dad, so I think
100%. I am following his guiding principles,
yeah.
and he's getting me prepared. That training is still going on and will go on for good some time. So, also, your dad had a brother who passed away, and Jitendrabhai was very active during that time. And if you want to dedicate and say one thing about him today that still guides a lot of decisions today.
So I think I was very lucky. I'm the only sort of son, because we lived in a joint family. So, both the brothers, I'm the only son, and both of them, kind of lived always together. There was because he had untimely passed, uncle had untimely passed away in 2009, and he was hands on, and he was kind of running all the businesses on a day-to-day perspective. So, I mean, it was always like, you had asked me earlier that I always wanted to join real estate. But the moment I passed out of my MBA, and in a couple of months, he had passed away. So I kind of got thrusted into this business. But I was lucky enough to kind of closely observe him since the last 2, 3 years before he passed away. Because when I was doing my masters, I had spent a lot of time with him. I was kind of keenly observing as to what how would he look at problems, how would he look at kind of growth, how would he look at managing relationships. And I think everybody who has known him would kind of agree that he was an absolute, uh, you know, kind of a wizard in business. He was an excellent relationship person. He was an excellent people person, and very, very astute as a businessman, right? And what I think is, naturally, I have his genes, but I also have kind of observed him. And always my aim is that had he been in business today, how would he have looked at this decision? Is the way that I always kind of benchmark my decisions to, right? And of course, you can never get, I'll never be able to fill his shoes, but his way of looking at things, his interesting and very, very matured way to kind of solve a problem. And a lot of problems are not always kind of it's more of a people problem on most of the occasions than a physical problem, right? And it's very important to understand relationships, people. And I think that was his mastery. And I always kind of always imagine that had he been here, and if he was kind of in my place, how would he have looked at it? And I think that gives me inspiration, that gives me strength, that gives me courage, and also is always a guiding light in terms of how I should be kind of conducting myself. How should I be building my personality? So I think he's up there. He's always blessing us. But I think he always wanted to see his business flourish. He always was very, very forward thinking. And I think those values, those kind of his thoughts in our own little way. We are kind of, so I think we have a very long task in, kind of set out as a company now, when we want to fulfill the wishes of and the dreams of both our founders, both the brothers. I think the team has a task really set out, and what we are doing. And I think of myself as a trustee more than an owner myself right now. I think more of a trustee of the family and their vision, and in my own way how I can kind of fulfill that dream or fulfill that vision of theirs. So I think that mindset of a trustee is very well set in our minds. So yeah, I think he's always going to be a guiding light in the way we kind of do our business.
Very happy for the level of gratefulness that you have around the whole family and everyone.
Yeah, I think gratitude is very, very less appreciated. I think I always kind of consciously practice in terms of how, and I always say that, whatever I am today is just because of both of them, right? I mean, and you would agree, because even you are second gen, the platform is all because of that. And of course it's an opportunity, it's a pressure, but I think the gratitude is to them, to give us that kind of a platform where we can actually really fly from here on.
Any day and every day. Any day and every day.
Uh,
So we'll move on to this last thing of rapid fire with you. So one belief about real estate that most people get wrong.
that everybody is ethically wrong here. I mean, there'll always going to be a few black sheep, but I think there are enough and many people who have got their heart in the right place.
So one habit that gets you motivated.
I think I'll just take two: my fitness journey and my reading journey. I think both of them have kept me really level headed, and I think they give me that adrenaline rush, and a lot of management learnings actually out of that. So, two things.
One fear you have overcame.
So this fear, because I got in business really early at 21. So earlier I used to really fear talking in front of all the stalwarts, but I think with age and with experience and quite early in my life, I really overcame that fear of telling somebody even much older than me that actually, they might be wrong and I might be right, right? So it's a very it's not a fear, but it's as a young businessman, I think that's one fear that you actually need to overcome to be true to yourself, right? And you just don't need to say yes to everything.
So if not real estate, which other business would it be?
So I think as a business, if not real estate, I think I really tell my child now, and I think which I really would want myself to also get involved, is that anything around AI and robotics. I think I'm an electrical engineer, but जब से college छोड़ा है तब से current कहाँ से कहाँ जा रहा है, I've never kind of really paid attention to it. But I tell my kid that if you want to survive for the next 50 years, AI and robotics is what you should do. So I think if not that, then and if I were to restart again, then probably I would look at something around AI and robotics.
Oh, beautiful. Not the other family businesses that you have.
No, no. I mean, I wanted to say something new which my family is not doing, right? Which is jewelry, which is real estate, which is investments. Something apart from that, I think my family is not yet into AI and robotics. I
100%
think I
fair.
wanted
Fair.
to look at that.
So I think so. Shilpin Bhai was a very great time. I think so. There is a good amount of relatability, personally mine, attached to you because kind of following the footsteps or ways that you have had an exposure or a background or already an existing family into the real estate business. So did learn a lot and all the best for your future endeavors and thank you so much for this time and opportunity.
Thanks, Akrish. Even I've had a fantastic time. I think this actually felt more like a conversation than anything else, and I think the topics that we've touched upon, I think some things which are very close to my heart. And also, I think since both of us are kind of second gen, I think a lot of interesting conversations around that. All the best to you, to what you've been doing in your own personal journey, as well as now at Rishabh Raj. So all the best to you, and thanks for having me and
Thank you.
doing
Thank
this.
you so much.
Thank you.